We do not stand still and are developing for you, so we bring to your attention a new voice and a new story.
32-year-old Lisa Morgan, Rebecca's elder sister, has always played the role of a guardian and mentor. From teaching her to tie shoelaces to helping her navigate high school troubles, I've been her constant companion. When Rebecca got engaged, I gladly took on the task as her maid of honor, pouring in thousands of dollars, countless hours, and my entire heart into making her special day perfect. However, family dynamics can be intricate, and with Mother Deborah asserting control, I never expected to hear those harsh words from her. If you're grappling with family difficulties, share your experiences below. Like this video and subscribe, as this narrative might provide the courage you need. Rebecca, the creative and lively sibling, contrasted with me, the pragmatic one, often advised to loosen up. Our father, Thomas, seldom engaged in our family dynamics, preferring peace over conflict when my mother's actions transgressed boundaries. As the eldest, I found myself stepping into the role of family mediator naturally. From fixing leaking roofs to covering unexpected expenses from my savings, I shouldered these responsibilities throughout our childhood and adulthood, including supporting Rebecca financially during her art history studies when our parents' support fell short. My career path led me to financial consulting at a renowned firm in Boston. Despite overseeing multi-million-dollar portfolios for clients, I continued to manage my family's finances. The paradox wasn't lost on me. While I handled significant financial matters professionally, I was still expected to handle our family finances as well. However, I found satisfaction in helping Rebecca realize her dreams. 3 years ago, at an art gallery opening, when Rebecca encountered James Wilson, it was clear they were a match made in heaven. Modest regarding his wealth, James appreciated and nurtured Rebecca's artistic talents and career aspirations. Their engagement 2 years later did not come as a shock, and I was the one who received her jubilant call. "Lisa," he proposed. "Will you be my maid of honor?" she squealed excitedly over the phone. Her voice resonated with joy that frosty December morning. "Yes, I will," I eagerly replied, envisioning ways to bring her wedding dreams to life. "Agree," she said, and I was already imagining the detailed planning stages. Rebecca and I spent our weekends scouting venues, deliberating over color schemes, and filling Pinterest boards with inspiration. Every conversation saw me jotting down notes meticulously, aiming to translate her vision into reality. My apartment accumulated bridal magazines and fabric samples. The initial alarm bell rang during what should have been a casual family dinner to discuss wedding finances. Mom arrived with an unfamiliar leather-bound wedding planner and declared that she had already paid deposits for the Clayton Hotel. This was before anyone even started their salad. "They only had one available date this summer, so I seized it," she said. Rebecca appeared surprised but pleased. "Mom, that's very thoughtful, but Lisa and I were still considering different venues." "My dear, the Clayton books up a year in advance. We're fortunate they had a cancellation." Mom patted Rebecca's hand while casting me a triumphant look. "Moreover, I've always dreamed of your wedding taking place there." This was the start of numerous decisions made without consultation. Within a few weeks, Mom transitioned from an occasional contributor to a wedding autocrat. Initially, research vendors were set aside in favor of suggestions from her friend. The color scheme we had agreed upon seemed dull to us suddenly. When I voiced my worry, Rebecca reassured me, saying, "It's okay." She was pleased because her mother enjoyed it and found the planning easier. Moreover, they were contributing significantly financially. I held back, assisting as much as I could, but feeling more like an observer rather than a participant. This feeling grew stronger when photos of my cousin Megan started appearing on social media during planning. Megan had always shown keen interest in our family events and desired to be part of the inner circle. Now, she was going to vendor meetings I hadn't been informed about. In one Instagram photo, she was holding color swatches against bridesmaid dress options, a task I believed would fall under my responsibility as maid of honor. Lately, Rebecca appears more connected with Megan. During a chat with my partner Tyler one night while glancing at another picture of them from a cake tasting, I observed this. "Perhaps it's due to Megan having more leisure time," Tyler suggested, as always offering a logical perspective. "Given that you've been overloaded at work during the past quarter." I acknowledged with a nod, trying to suppress the uneasy feeling that something deeper might be unfolding. After all, Rebecca and I have been each other's mainstays for 3 decades. A few weeks of wedding planning couldn't alter that, could it? However, as spring advanced, the invitations for planning events ceased completely. When I phoned Rebecca to check on her, her responses became progressively imprecise and hurried. Discussions about centerpieces and music switched to brief messages like, "Mom's in charge," or "already sorted." Meanwhile, I continued financially supporting aspects of the wedding, such as deposits for photographer Rebecca favored, but Mom deemed too pricey, custom welcome baskets for guests out of town, and secret preparations for a hoped-for perfect wedding gift. A luxurious Bali honeymoon with first-class tickets and a private villa overlooking the ocean. I reassured myself that things would return to normal post-wedding. This was just a stressful phase, and soon my sister and I would joke about Mom's wedding control over wine in her new married home. I didn't foresee then how incorrect I was, or how rapidly the situation would worsen beyond anything imaginable. The day I learned I wasn't invited to Rebecca's dress shopping spree felt like a blow to the chest. Through a casual inquiry from my colleague Natalie, who is acquainted with the boutique owner, I learned about Rebecca's appointment there the previous day. It turns out that your sister found her perfect dress right away. This news left me momentarily shocked, midway through sipping my coffee. "What appointment are you talking about?" Natalie's countenance changed from elated to discomfited. "Oh, at the upscale boutique? Apparently your mother, sister, and cousin enjoyed champagne and spent considerable time there. I had thought you were present as well." I muttered something about an unexpected work crisis and hurried off to the restroom, where I contemplated my reflection, bewildered by being left out of such a significant event. Rebecca and I have long discussed wedding dress shopping, dating back to when we were teenagers, pretending pillowcases were veils and vowing to support each other during special occasions. Later that day, I phoned Rebecca, keeping my voice composed. "How did the dress shopping go?" After a brief pause, she replied it happened quite quickly. Mom had an appointment, not intended for shopping, merely a preliminary inspection. With Megan? A moment of hesitation. She was available, and we required a third perspective. "I could have been free," I mentioned softly. "You could have asked." "Lisa, let's not make this a big issue. There will be other wedding-related tasks for you to join." However, the promised other wedding tasks never came up. The bridal shower was arranged without my involvement. Although I was requested to contribute financially towards the venue, the bachelorette party planning was taken over by Megan, who opted for a location I knew Rebecca wouldn't appreciate. When I proposed ideas based on 3 decades of knowing my sister, they were disregarded as not what Rebecca wants anymore. Yet, I continued to offer support from the sidelines. I arranged the honeymoon details, spending $8,600 on premium flights, lavish accommodations, and unique experiences that I knew the couple would appreciate. I envisioned Rebecca's reaction as I unveiled the surprise at the rehearsal dinner, visualizing our embrace and the renewal of our sisterly connection. However, the gap between us expanded. Rebecca started skipping our routine Sunday brunches, each time offering a new reason. Our dialogues, when they occurred, felt contrived and superficial, a stark contrast to the heartfelt discussions we used to have. "Are things all right between us?" I inquired directly after 3 weeks of decreasing contact. "Everything's fine," she said, avoiding eye contact, merely swamped with wedding preparations. The past few months have been a breeze managing all the logistics. At a family get-together in May, just 2 months before the wedding, I chanced upon a conversation that sent a chill down my spine. I had ventured into the kitchen to fill up my water glass when I heard my name from the adjoining dining room. "Lisa has always been challenging." My mother's voice resonated clearly. "Rebecca is finally realizing it now. Always needs to dominate and focus on her achievements," as Megan remarked, with feigned empathy, particularly during her wedding when she should have been the focal point. Indeed, that's why we've had to limit her role, for Rebecca's benefit. Hearing this, I stood motionless, water spilling from my glass as their words struck me. It seemed my own mother was deliberately keeping me out of my sister's wedding, portraying me as an attention-craving fiend to anyone who would listen. That night, I confided in Tyler, finally expressing the doubts I had been suppressing for months. What if they no longer want me at the wedding? What if this distance leads to something worse? Tyler embraced me, his steadfast presence a contrast to my trembling hands. "That can't be true. You're Rebecca's sister, and you've only ever supported her." "But what if Mom has managed to deceive her?" Tyler asserted that one couldn't fully grasp her manipulative nature, nor predict her actions. Consequently, it was essential to communicate directly with Rebecca. He emphasized the need for open dialogue about the current situation instead of speculation or passive waiting. The circumstances had grown too complex for passivity. I messaged Rebecca the next morning, proposing a discussion on the wedding and our relationship, suggesting we meet the following day. Her response was delayed, inviting me to their parents' house on Thursday at 7, stating we could talk then. Those 5 days were some of the longest in my life, filled with anticipation for reconciliation and clarity. I rehearsed what I would say, how to express my pain without accusations. I reminded myself that Rebecca might be caught between her mother's strong personality and our relationship issues. Arriving at their parents' house on Thursday evening, I harbored hopes of reconciliation and understanding. Unbeknownst to me, I was embarking on a journey. That fateful Thursday evening, I found myself approaching a trap that would irreversibly alter my bond with my family and prompt me to reassess the essence of loyalty and self-worth. The stillness of the night hung heavy as I pulled up outside our colonial residence. The once familiar driveway where Rebecca and I played hopscotch now seemed like alien ground. After ensuring my blouse was straight, I took a deep breath before treading towards the front door. Mom answered without delay, her countenance inscrutable. "You'll find us in the living room," she said curtly, moving away without waiting for my response. The tableau within felt orchestrated. Dad sat rigidly in his usual armchair, displaying discomfort and pallor. Rebecca clung to the edge of the sofa, her gaze averted, her hands twisting nervously. Mom stood behind Rebecca, her posture suggestive of guardianship, one hand resting on the back of the sofa. In the usual place for family discussions, Megan sat, appearing both smug and worried. "What's happening?" I inquired, choosing not to sit when no one offered. "This is about the wedding," Mom interrupted before Rebecca could speak. "There are things you should know about the wedding," she added. A hush settled over me, a precursor to an impending storm I could sense. "We've been discussing this as a family," my mother continued, her voice taking on a condescending tone honed over years. "And we all agreed that your role in the wedding has become problematic." "Problematic?" I repeated, fixing my gaze on Rebecca, who refused to look back. My controlling behavior, my self-centeredness were enumerated by Mom like items on a shopping list. In attempting to dominate Rebecca's special moment with your views and financial support, I felt like I'd entered an alternate world. "Rebecca," I urged, yearning for my sister to express her feelings directly. She eventually lifted her gaze, wearing a blend of guilt and determined composure. "Things have been extremely overwhelming, Lisa. Whenever you insert yourself, tension arises. Mom feels—" "Mom?" I echoed softly. "What's your opinion, Rebecca?" Before she could respond, Mom moved forward, positioning herself between us partially. "What Rebecca wants is for her wedding to be a joyous event. Honestly, your presence would ruin it." The room seemed to sway as those words hit me. "You refer to the planning process, correct?" Mom's lips formed. What could only be described as a smirk, satisfaction shining in her eyes as she finally delivered the blow she had been preparing for months. "We all concurred on that," she declared, articulating each word as if savoring fine wine. "You're not invited to the wedding. Not as maid of honor, not as a bridesmaid, not as a guest. It's for the best that way." The ensuing silence was deafening, echoing with the ticking of an antique clock on the mantelpiece. Dad stayed silent in his chair, Megan looked at the floor, and Rebecca, my sister and best friend since her birth, remained quiet, effectively ending 3 decades of sisterhood. "I understand," I eventually replied, taken aback by the evenness of my own voice. It seemed this decision had been made months ago. My mom confirmed it, seemingly pleased with my composed response, which she mistakenly took as acceptance, prompting Rebecca to ask Megan to be her maid of honor weeks earlier. We were just making it official now. Turning to Megan, who returned my gaze with a defiant look, I managed a flat, "Congratulations." She responded, "It's not personal," a statement that held no sincerity. She almost chuckled at the irony. There was nothing personal about her replacing me in my sister's wedding, or in her life. "Rebecca," I asked once more, "is this truly what you desire?" My mother answered again, "Rebecca prefers a drama-free wedding. You've always been too dominating, too opinionated. Everything must be done your way. The venue wasn't satisfactory, the caterer didn't meet your standards." "That's not accurate, and you are aware of this," I interjected, feeling the first fissure in my composed exterior. "I have backed every decision, even when not consulted. I have provided thousands of dollars without being requested." "Ah, there it is," my mother accused, pointing at our direction, implying that my money was being used to control the wedding. "And that's precisely why you cannot attend." I looked at my father, appealing silently for him to speak up, to intervene. Briefly meeting his gaze, then averting it. His longtime tactic of avoiding disputes held sway once more. An unusual tranquility enveloped me then, a lucidity piercing through the pain and bewilderment. This wasn't a miscommunication. This wasn't something that could be resolved with a heartfelt conversation. This was a deliberately engineered exclusion, meticulously planned over months. Good to know, I said succinctly. I moved toward the door, my actions robotic. Behind me, Rebecca called out my name once, softly. But no one pursued me. No one tried to impede me. The drive home transpired in a haze. Streetlights blended like watercolors as unforeseen tears filled my eyes. I stopped twice when the road became too hazy to travel safely. My phone vibrated continually with incoming messages, but I couldn't muster the strength to read them. When I eventually reached my apartment, Tyler was there, his countenance brimming with anticipation that dissolved upon seeing me. "What transpired?" he inquired, swiftly embracing me. In a series of intermittent outbursts amid sobs, you recounted the ambush, Mom's derisive grin, Rebecca's deceit, Dad's silence, and Megan's victory. "This is unacceptable," Tyler declared when you finished speaking, the anger evident in his tone. "You are her sister. You've only ever been supportive of her." "Apparently, that doesn't count for much," you murmured, feeling the weight of emotional fatigue. It seemed Mom had been plotting this for months, manipulating Rebecca against you and portraying you as a villain. "What will you do next?" Tyler inquired, his hand warm against yours. Gazing out the window at the city lights below, you felt empty yet strangely liberated, as if the worst had already occurred. Now you could start to rebuild. "I'm not certain as of now," you conceded, "but I know I deserve more than this. Everything that has happened." Unbeknownst to you at the time, the confrontation that night was merely the beginning of the narrative. That night, I lay awake pondering what was to follow, the harsh reality of betrayal and an unforeseen route towards healing. My mind kept replaying the events at my parents' house, scrutinizing every word, glance, seeking any misinterpretation or misunderstanding. But my mother's self-satisfied smirk as she spoke her verdict left no room for ambiguity. By 4 a.m., I had given up on sleep altogether. Sitting in the stillness of my kitchen at dawn with an untouched cup of tea beside me, I began to compile a list of all the expenses I had covered for Rebecca's wedding. The photographer deposit, $2,500. Custom welcome baskets for out-of-town guests, $1,800. The string quartet I arranged as a surprise for the ceremony, $1,200. And numerous smaller expenditures. I employed a calligrapher who crafted personalized place cards, following Rebecca's comment about appreciating hand lettering. The honeymoon was the pinnacle of my gifts for my sister and James. High-end flights to Bali cost $4,200, while a private villa with scenic ocean views amounted to $3,800. Various unique experiences I had organized added up to $600, making my total contribution for the wedding I was barred from attending exceed $15,000. At first light, I decided on my course of action. I logged into my banking app and moved the honeymoon fund of $8,600 back to my personal account. Systematically, I canceled each reservation on airline and resort websites. I also notified the travel agent handling special experiences about the modification in plans via a succinct professional email. Throughout the night, my phone had been repeatedly buzzing with texts and calls, but I chose to ignore them. Checked notifications, found 3 missed calls from Rebecca, 12 from Mom, and an odd one from Dad. Various texts, mostly from Mom, ranged from defensive to accusatory, neither expressing regret nor reconsideration. Made a final call to my credit card company, reporting unauthorized charges, explaining to the representative that family members had made purchases without permission. While not completely accurate, it wasn't entirely false either. I hadn't given explicit approval for Mom's additional wedding favors last month or her demand for upgraded linens. By 7 a.m., I had carefully severed my financial connections to Rebecca's wedding, sent a brief email to boss explaining the need for a personal day, then switched off my phone entirely. The ensuing quietness felt both frightening and exhilarating. Spent the morning wandering through public gardens, grappling with the weight of recent events. The betrayal was tangible, a deep pain beneath my ribs that grew with each breath. For 30 years, Rebecca and I had shared our secrets, dreams, sorrows, joys. How could she remain silent while my mother expelled me from her wedding? How could she choose Megan of all people to replace me? At noon, I met my closest friend, Olivia, for lunch. I hadn't intended to unburden everything, but one glance at my face and she knew something was critically wrong. "They did that?" she exclaimed upon hearing the details, loud enough to catch the attention of nearby tables. "Your own mother said that to your face?" I nodded, moving salad around on my plate without touching it. "And Rebecca just sat there? Said nothing?" Olivia's indignation was reassuring after hours of self-doubt. She attempted to speak up a few times, but my mother kept interrupting, and she failed to intervene, so My words trailed off, the pain still too fresh to express fully. Olivia stretched her hand across the table towards me. Lisa, she said softly, there's something I believe you should know. I hadn't shared it with you before as I didn't wish to distress you, but now I think you need to understand. My stomach tightened at her words. What is it? She hesitated, looking uneasy. For months now, your mother has been making comments about you. At Rebecca's engagement party, she told my mother that you were envious of Rebecca's happiness. And at the Williams dinner party last month, she spoke of everyone's concern for your emotional instability and how the family was treading carefully around you. I stared at Olivia in shock. What? Why would she say such a thing? I don't know, Olivia replied, but she's been sowing these small seeds among your social circle, making subtle comments and giving concerned looks. Nothing direct enough to seem malicious, but just enough to create an impression that you're troubled in some way. Olivia squeezed my hand tightly. I'd always silence it whenever I heard it. But I can't be everywhere. My mother's voice reverberated in my mind. Your controlling tendencies, your self-centeredness. She hadn't just been pushing Rebecca against me, she'd been gradually eroding my standing with everyone we knew. But why? I murmured, more to myself than Olivia. What does she gain from this? Power, Olivia explained succinctly. You're successful, independent, financially secure, traits that she never possessed. My mom used to say your mother was jealous of you, even when we were children. As the puzzle pieces fell into place in a new configuration, decades-old acts of small cruelties and manipulations became clear. Actions I had either ignored or justified. The times my mother would forget about family gatherings, the half compliments about my career. Impressive. You've achieved so much without a husband to help you along. Her subtle reminders to Rebecca of every childhood slight, while downplaying the support and protection I provided my sister. I've been so oblivious, I admitted. You've been a daughter hoping your mother was good, Olivia clarified softly. That's not ignorance. That's love. By the time I reached home that afternoon, I felt altered, still wounded, but clearer about the situation and what actions were required. I reactivated my phone and observed as alerts poured in. In total, 28 missed calls. Voicemails varied from my mother's freezing anger to my father's awkward peace offerings. Among them was a message from Rebecca. Sent at 3:42 a.m., it altered everything. I'm truly sorry, Lisa. Your mom has been deceiving me about you for months. James and I just discovered what she did with the honeymoon reservations. Please contact me. Please, answer me. I fixed my gaze on Rebecca's message for a prolonged period, my thumb hesitating above the call button without making contact. However, following several manipulative months and yesterday's harsh altercation, I wasn't prepared to re-enter the turmoil without seeking more clarification. The subsequent messages portrayed a scene of familial collapse. My mother's voicemails transitioned from righteously indignant, "How could you cancel the honeymoon after promising it as a gift?" to threatening, "I have no other choice but to reveal your actions to everyone," and then to an unconvincing attempt at reconciliation. "We can still resolve this if you apologize." My father's messages were less frequent and more subdued. In one message, he mentioned that I had upset my mother in the background noise, suggesting he was calling from his car to avoid being overheard, and asked me to call when convenient. Other family members also began expressing their opinions. My Uncle Robert, a consistent ally of my mother, delivered a stern lecture about respecting parents. My grandmother inquired about my well-being with a shaky voice, evidently having heard my mother's account of events. Besides her, there were unforeseen allies as well. Aunt Catherine, usually detached from family conflicts, left a strong message stating, "Lisa, I've seen your mother behave this way before, with your father being the target. Please call me. We need to discuss." I chose to reach out to Aunt Catherine first. Upon answering my call, she expressed her concern with her reassuring voice. "Lisa, I've been very anxious. Are you okay?" To which I replied honestly, "Not quite." "What's going on, Aunt Catherine? Why is Mom doing this?" She explained, "Because you challenge her, Lisa. You always have since you were a child. Capable, independent. Deborah needs to feel needed and control everything. When that's disputed, she reacts. By turning my sister against me? By forbidding me from the wedding? It's how she operates," Catherine sighed. "In our close relationship, my father changed significantly upon meeting Deborah. She stirred up non-existent conflicts and falsely accused me of saying harmful things about her. By their wedding, I was no longer welcomed. This realization hit me hard, as he never shared this with me. Thomas has always opted for peace over arguments, particularly with your mother. We eventually made amends. But it was years later and never the same as before. She spoke gently. However, this isn't about past events. It's about stopping this recurring pattern now to prevent any lasting harm to your relationship with Rebecca. After discussing this with Catherine, I reached out to my college friend Andrea, a therapist. Without breaching confidentiality, she helped me comprehend the complex dynamics at play: narcissistic tendencies, triangulation, and the golden child scapegoat dynamic that had defined my relationship with Rebecca since our childhood. The crucial aspect Andrea stressed is safeguarding your personal space while providing an opening for Rebecca to return. Given her manipulated state, keep in mind. As I was contemplating this guidance, my phone rang once more. It was James, Rebecca's fiancé. His voice was filled with genuine distress. "Lisa, thank goodness you picked up," he said. "It's been a pandemonium here. Rebecca has been crying for hours." "What transpired, James?" I maintained a neutral tone, unwilling to extend trust yet. "It appears your mother's deeds have come to light. The lies she spun, the altered emails. Lisa, it turns out that Rebecca was never informed about your absence during dress shopping. Your mom told her you couldn't make it, and even showed her texts supposedly from you canceling." "What? I didn't send any such texts. We now know this to be true. Your mother seems to have fabricated conversations with you to present them to Rebecca, making it seem like you were preoccupied or disinterested in wedding-related activities." His voice grew firmer. When confronted, she confessed to modifying names in Rebecca's phone contacts and redirecting some of your messages to her own device. The extent of her calculated deceit was significant. However, yesterday at the house, Rebecca believed the meeting was aimed at reconciliation. Your mother claimed you had been speaking ill about the wedding, that it was necessary for you to understand the pain caused. She didn't anticipate what transpired exactly. I was dazed. "She's telling me this through you because she's petrified you'll never speak to her again. And because—" He hesitated. "Your mother appeared at our apartment last night following your departure. She wasn't in a good state, ranting about ungrateful children, insisting we pick sides. The situation deteriorated so much that neighbors contacted building security. The predicament was escalating more rapidly than I could comprehend." "I require time to think, James. This is overwhelming. I understand, just please don't close the door entirely, okay? Rebecca cares for you. She's been manipulated too." I gave no promises but stated I'd reach out soon. Scarcely had I wrapped up this discussion when my work phone rang. It was Sandra, our office receptionist. "Lisa, I dislike disturbing you on your day off, but there's a predicament here. Your mother turned up approximately 20 minutes ago, insisting to see you. Upon explaining your absence, she created quite the commotion in the lobby. My professional and personal spheres were merging disastrously." "Exactly what is she doing?" "She's making accusations, spreading rumors that you've embezzled money from her, that you're suffering some sort of mental breakdown," Sandra whispered. "Mr. Daniels is attempting to manage it, but she's growing more unpredictable." "I'll head there immediately," I responded, snatching my keys. The 15-minute drive to the office felt like entering a war zone. In the past, Sam had shown little interest in my work beyond its financial impact on our family. However, she unexpectedly threatened my professionally established standing at my workplace. Upon arriving, I discovered security was escorting my mother out of the building, her comments echoing throughout the lobby about my questionable character. The humiliation hit me hard, radiating across my face as colleagues looked on. My supervisor, Mr. Daniels, approached me with concern, offering time to handle this personal matter. He acknowledged that my work spoke for itself and dismissed the allegations as unfounded. Despite his supportive words, the public display left me feeling vulnerable and violated. This incident transcended a simple wedding matter. My mother was intentionally attempting to undermine the pillars of my life: my reputation, relationships, career. Security led my mom to the parking lot, and our eyes met in the lobby instead of the expected regret or embarrassment. Instead, I saw cold rage and a twisted satisfaction at causing chaos in my well-structured life. In that instant, something within me changed. The little girl yearning for maternal approval vanished, replaced by an unyielding adult who could finally recognize the deceitful manipulation. This wasn't love. This wasn't family. This was abuse, and it had persisted far too long. I went back to my apartment and made a choice. It was past time to tackle this situation decisively, not with emotional outbursts, but with unassailable truth. I would meet with Rebecca and anyone else involved to lay bare what had transpired and set boundaries for my safety, regardless of whether those boundaries entailed attending the wedding or even continuing our relationship. The future with my mother was uncertain. For the first time, I comprehended that I merited superior treatment than I had experienced, and I was willing to assert it. 2 days subsequently, I found myself seated at a secluded table in a tranquil cafe midway between my residence and Rebecca's. I had purposely arrived early to compose myself, placing arranged proof in a folder beside me. Screenshots of authentic messages contradicting Mom's falsified ones, email confirmations of wedding preparations I'd organized, bank statements displaying my financial contributions. Rebecca showed up alone, seeming somehow diminished. Her usual self-assuredness seemed absent. Dark circles under her eyes mirrored mine. "Thank you for coming," she whispered softly, taking the seat opposite me. "James won't be joining us?" I inquired, as our phone conversation had suggested otherwise. "He's parking the car," she replied. "I wanted a few moments alone with you first." Her hands shook slightly as she organized her purse nearby. Lisa, I'm at a loss as to how to proceed." I remained silent, allowing her time to gather her thoughts. This wasn't the scenario I had envisioned for our first chat post-confrontation. However, nothing about this predicament adhered to established norms. I trusted her, Rebecca eventually admitted, her voice cracking. "For months, my mother had shown me messages from you, canceling arrangements, disparaging my wedding choices as tacky, claiming your hectic career kept you too preoccupied to manage wedding details." Tears streamed down her face. I trusted her because it was simpler than believing my mother would fabricate the truth so thoroughly and deliberately. "Did she show you fabricated messages?" I inquired, still struggling to fathom the magnitude of the deception. Rebecca nodded, pulling out her phone. James uncovered the truth. "Have a look at this." She showed me her messaging app, scrolling through conversations with me, but they weren't my actual words. Texts canceling wedding plans, criticizing expenses, making derogatory comments about her choices. All traced to my number, but written in a voice not like mine, suggesting my mother had access to my phone. She created a contact with her own number using your name. Believing I was communicating with you, it was actually my mother who I was texting. Then she'd respond pretending to be you. Rebecca wiped her eyes as she read this. "Real messages from you were deleted by her. I never received many of the things you sent me." The systematic deceit was overwhelming. But what about when we interacted in person? Shouldn't it have been evident something was amiss? Our meetings had become infrequent due to various excuses given for your absence at wedding-related events. And during our encounters, she always seemed present, steering the conversation and reinterpreting your words in a negative light afterward. Rebecca looked up as James approached the table. Her actions tainted everything. James placed 3 coffees and sat next to Rebecca, saying, "Lisa, I deeply regret not realizing the situation earlier." I inquired about his discovery. The cancellation of the honeymoon was the decisive factor for him, as he revealed. Upon receiving the notification, Rebecca was puzzled because she wasn't aware of the planned Bali trip. "Your mother claimed you had promised an extravagant honeymoon, but canceled it out of spite following your exclusion from the wedding. However, this didn't add up logically," Rebecca pointed out. "Why would you invest thousands in a honeymoon for us if you were as resentful as Mom suggested?" So, we delved into the matter, examining phone records and comparing message timestamps. James continued, "Once we began searching for discrepancies, everything crumbled. The conclusive evidence surfaced when we discovered a folder on your mother's tablet. She had saved screenshots of fabricated conversations she constructed, presumably to maintain her narrative straight. I slid my folder towards her. I provided my own proof, bank transactions, original emails, the whole lot. As Rebecca and James perused the documents, their expressions transformed from shock to horror to anger. The disparity between my genuine words and actions contrasted sharply with what my mother had depicted. It was clear that during our meeting at your parents' house, James thought we were there to resolve misunderstandings. Rebecca believed she was unaware of my mother planning to bar me from the wedding. I was frozen, Rebecca confessed, guilt evident in her voice. When Mom began saying those awful things, claiming we had all agreed, I was stunned. By the time I comprehended what was transpiring, you had already left. She reached for my hand across the table. "Lisa, I never agreed to exclude you from my wedding. Your presence is essential for my wedding." Hearing this validated my experience brought an unexpected surge of emotions. For months in my family, I had been gaslit into doubting myself and my worth. "We need to discuss Mom," I said after regaining control of my voice. "Her behavior isn't normal. It's deliberate, manipulative." "It gets worse," James added gravely. "After you left that night, Rebecca confronted your mother. The words she spoke, the venom, it was as if she transformed into a different person." Rebecca agreed, but showed no remorse. "She claimed to be protecting me from your negative influence." When I expressed my desire to have you at the wedding again, she threatened to withdraw all financial support and tell the entire family I was having a pre-wedding breakdown. Just like what she's been saying about me, I whispered. Indeed, James confirmed. This is a tactic she uses to discredit anyone who questions her. For an hour, we traced the breadth of my mother's manipulation. The altered texts, deflected invitations, rumors spread across our social network, and financial control. Each disclosure added to the previous one, forming a detailed image of calculated emotional abuse that extended over decades. I've scheduled a meeting, I announced, with Dad, Aunt Catherine, and some other family members who need to understand the truth. A kind of impartial family intervention? When? Rebecca inquired. Tomorrow night. Will you attend? She agreed instantly. Of course. It's time everyone learned the truth. The ensuing family meeting was tough but essential, taking place in Aunt Catherine's living room with me, Rebecca, and James, Dad, Aunt Catherine, and Uncle Paul, and our grandmother Martha, who had asked to be present after receiving worrisome calls from Mom. I presented the proof systematically, maintaining composure. False documents, financial records, and testimonies of Mom's public actions were shared. Catherine recounted similar incidents from years past. James detailed Mom's breakdown at their apartment. For most of the presentation, Dad remained silent, his face gradually paling as the evidence accumulated. When he eventually spoke, his voice was barely perceptible. He acknowledged some of it, he admitted. Not all, but enough to suggest that action should have been taken earlier. He looked at me with eyes filled with regret. I chose tranquility over safeguarding you, Lisa. Mom entered last, having been informed this was about the wedding budget. Her self-assured stride faltered upon seeing the assembled group and the evidence strewn across the coffee table. What is all this? She inquired sharply, her gaze darting between faces. I responded with a simple, an opportunity for truth. The events that ensued were both foreseeable and agonizing. First, denial and allegations of conspiracy. Attempting to gain allies using traditional manipulative methods failed. Then, anger, both chilly and explosive, followed by hysteria. Finally, tears and claims of misinterpretation, insisting on acting for the family's good. She declared defiance when her actions fell on deaf ears, despite all she had done for the family, especially for Rebecca's wedding. Interrupting, Rebecca stood firm, stating that Lisa would be her maid of honor as she always wanted. If one couldn't respect this choice and behave decently towards Lisa, they would have a restricted part in both the wedding and future interactions. Shock registered on her mother's face. Did she choose her friend over her own mother? Rebecca countered resolutely. I am choosing truth over manipulation. I am choosing wellness over toxicity. Mom confronted Dad, anticipation evident on her face. For what seemed like the first time in their union, Dad refused to compromise to maintain harmony. Deborah, cut it out. Look at the mess you've made. Look at the proof. This ends here and now. The intervention didn't culminate in a tidy resolution. Enraged, Mom stormed off, threatening retaliation for our treachery. However, something profound had changed. The tactic of manipulation had been uncovered, labeled, and dismissed by those it intended to sway. Although we were far from resolving all family issues related to the upcoming wedding, I felt for the first time that we were united. We were moving together toward truth and healthier relationships, regardless of the implications for the wedding fast approaching. The week preceding Rebecca's wedding saw a tentative new equilibrium emerging within our fractured family. Following the intervention, Mom oscillated between various strategies, from icy detachment to tearful entreaties for comprehension, heated recriminations, and eventually a reluctant public acceptance of the boundaries we established. To our surprise, Dad upheld his backing of Rebecca's choice to reappoint me as maid of honor. For years, he had opted for tranquility over discord. Yet in this instance, it appeared he had discovered an untapped reservoir of fortitude hidden within. During a confidential conversation on my balcony, he confessed to me that he should have shielded you both earlier. He acknowledged that his silence was equivalent to maintaining peace. He admitted to being mistaken. Why now, Dad? I inquired softly. What prompted this change? He gazed into his coffee cup for a considerable length of time. Facing the truth, laid out as it was, I could no longer hide from it. And frankly, Lisa, I'm weary. Wearied by tiptoeing around, wearied by pretending that everything is normal when it isn't. His vulnerability was startling yet healing. This newer version of my father, ready to confront harsh realities, apologize, and adapt, instilled hope that authentic transformation could occur. Lisa and I were gradually reestablishing our relationship. our connection bruised but not shattered. We had spent countless hours discussing the manipulations that had driven us apart, mourning the lost months of sisterhood. During one of our reconciliation brunches, she mused about what might have transpired if James hadn't unearthed those fabricated messages. Let's avoid pondering that, I proposed, holding her hand across the table. We're here now. As for Mom, the family set forth clear conditions. She could attend the wedding, but her role would be drastically limited. No more one-sided decisions, no private talks with vendors, no attempts to segregate or control any family members. If I reject these terms, she suggested with contempt, then you'll be there merely as a guest, without any say in the ceremony or reception details, Rebecca made clear. To everyone's astonishment, Mom eventually conceded, though her submission appeared more tactical than sincere. The brief glimpses of resentment in her eyes, swiftly hidden by feigned joviality, revealed the truth. My experience with this predicament unexpectedly led to personal growth. The initial despair evolved into understanding about family dynamics I'd accepted as normal for too long. Working with a therapist focusing on family trauma, I started identifying patterns of enabling and people-pleasing in my actions that left me susceptible to manipulation. Your value isn't defined by what you offer others, Dr. Marshall emphasized during a challenging session. Not monetarily, not emotionally, not practically. During the last stages of wedding planning, I assumed my role as maid of honor again, but this time with clear boundaries. I agreed to assist in coordinating the bridesmaids and help Rebecca with any last-minute details. However, I made it clear that I wouldn't drain my savings or compromise my health while managing everyone's needs, especially Elsa's emotions. I also arranged a modified honeymoon package for Rebecca and James, maintaining its generosity but adjusting it to reflect my new perspective on balanced giving. I emphasized that this was an unconditional gift when presenting the revised plan. It wasn't a payment for their affection or inclusion. The wedding day turned out sunny and bright, offering a striking contrast to the emotional turmoil of the past few months. The ceremony was set for 4 p.m. at the Clayton Hotel, allowing ample time in the morning and early afternoon for preparations. Despite her vow, my mother's efforts appeared strained. My sister's interactions with me were sparse, yet cordial. She was meticulously playing the part of the bride during the festivities. As I assisted Rebecca in her chosen wedding dress, which I hadn't been there for her to pick, a fleeting pang of regret hit me about the simplicity that should have characterized this day. Rebecca noticed my reflection. She wished we could eliminate the past few months, she whispered gently. Contrary to expectation, I replied that I didn't want to. As difficult as it was, it exposed the truth. We can now construct a more robust relationship. Rebecca turned towards me, resplendent in ivory lace. When did my older sister acquire such wisdom? Most likely around the time my younger sister gained such courage, I responded, cautiously arranging her veil. The ceremony unfolded flawlessly. I stood tall beside Rebecca, holding her bouquet as she and James exchanged heartfelt vows. At the reception, my mother sat next to Dad in the front row, maintaining a composed facade, occasionally locking eyes with me, expressing ambiguous emotion. The most surprising healing moment occurred unexpectedly. While guests socialized during the cocktail hour, I found myself briefly alone near the gift table, rearranging some misplaced cards. The calligraphy was beautiful, Mom commented from behind me. That was your work, wasn't it? I turned, expecting disguised criticism in the form of a compliment, but her expression revealed something seldom directed towards me: genuine appreciation. Yes, I replied briefly. Rebecca mentioned enjoying hand lettering, so Mom nodded, awkwardly and silently. Eventually, she spoke again, her voice quieter and less confident. You have always noticed the intricate details about people, what they love, what's important to them. I never possessed that talent. The small yet significant admission coming from her left me momentarily speechless. The therapist suggested, Mom hesitantly looked away, suggests I should learn to recognize others' strengths without feeling overshadowed. A subtle, humorless chuckle. It seems I have some work in that aspect. Are you seeing a therapist? The surprise was evident in my voice. Your father made you do it. After all that happened? She hesitated, then straightened her posture. I don't expect this to resolve our issues instantly. I know it will take time if it's even possible. But I am trying. It wasn't an apology, it wasn't a transformation, but it was a small opening in the fortress of denial she had built around herself. And for today, that was sufficient. A month after the wedding, our family began cautious group therapy sessions. Mom initially attended unwillingly, then more openly, as the structure provided her with acceptable methods to express her needs without manipulation. Dad found his voice slowly, revealing truths he'd hidden for a long time. Rebecca and I grew stronger. The foundation of our bond has transformed from codependency to mutual respect. Simultaneously, my personal healing process unfolded independently. I set firm boundaries in all my relationships, not only with family members. I came to identify when my assistance crossed into harmful territory. More significantly, I started appreciating my self-worth beyond what I offered others. Throughout this journey, Tyler remained my steadfast pillar, never wavering in his support. 6 months following Rebecca's wedding, during a hike to our favorite mountain overlook, he proposed. With no pause, I accepted. Yet, I made one stipulation: the wedding preparations would remain private between us. Limited committee, defined limits, and avoiding unnecessary drama. His laughter resonated through the valley below us. Agreement reached. As years passed, life continued to evolve. Mom's recovery followed an uneven course, displaying growth on some days, only to regress into old habits on others. My father rediscovered a newfound self-assurance that rejuvenated not only his marriage, but also ignited long-neglected personal pursuits. The arrival of their first child made me an aunt to a little girl, whose middle name Lisa caused tears to flow from my eyes. I learned the most important lesson: forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it sets boundaries for the healthiest expression of love. Boundaries aren't obstacles to affection, but pillars for its well-being. And asserting my own value isn't selfishness, but a necessity. From the heartbreaking night when my mother said those hurtful words, I was excluded from the wedding. And it wasn't straightforward or simple. It took courage to confront painful truths, discernment to distinguish healthy relationships from harmful ones, and resilience to demand the respect I deserved. If you're encountering similar family difficulties or exclusions, remember that sometimes the hardest boundaries to establish are the ones that ultimately foster healing. Your value isn't contingent upon others acknowledging it. And at times when reconciliation appears unattainable, it could signify the beginning of a more wholesome connection. I'm interested in hearing your insights about this narrative. Have you experienced challenges with family manipulation or establishing tough limits within relationships? How did you summon the strength to appreciate yourself when others failed to recognize your worth? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share if this tale struck a chord. Your backing is invaluable as we journey through these intricate human experiences collectively. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, your narrative holds significance too.